everyone, it's Linda from LyndaCreates. I have a totally different project today. My sister's birthday is coming up, and so I wanted to send her a slow stitch card, and I thought about how I was going to do this. I decided I'm going to do it in fairly neutrals, and everything, let's see, everything in this, well, almost everything in this group is thrifted. So I started off by cutting or tearing some muslin fabric into a size roughly 5 inches wide by 7 inches tall. Now I've dug through a lot of my old fabrics and I decided on a fairly neutral color. Okay, let me pull back just a little bit. Okay, so fairly neutral color. And along with that, and these are, they're not trimmed yet, so I was just placing them about to see. And I came up with something like that. I had a lot of other thrifted fabric bits. Didn't know what I wanted to do with that. Oh, this looks better. I didn't necessarily want to introduce that color. I did like this stripe, but I had too many stripes happening. Not sure I'm going to cut it down. I had this fabric, which was kind of interesting, but it was a little bright. So I'm going to try tea dyeing that and see if I can get it down, muted a little bit better. I also have this, very pretty. Might still add something. And then from that flower fabric, I wanted, oh, that's kind of pretty with the little bits of gold in there. May change my mind, but what I did was I tore out a piece. I was thinking that it would just be a little in the corner there, little piece in the corner. And I also dug out some vintage ecru colored lace. So I'm thinking something like this, a little geometric, a little freeform, a little solid, a little floral, a little lace. Anyway, okay, so I'm going to start cutting down these pieces to fit this area. I don't know what kind of fabric this is. It's a very nice weave. Just not sure what it is. I know cotton will tear beautifully. I'm not sure if these other fabrics will. Dare I try? It's pretty rough, but let's try. Okay. And I want to okay, well that's not tearing very easily. Let's see. Oh, let me rephrase that. I wasn't tearing it very easily. It tore into a nice little shredded piece. So I can possibly do it this way now. And I'm going to do a lot of stitching on top. Oh, interesting. This is a piece of linen. So I did buy this, but it was from a fabric thrift store. So it was like 78 cents. I splurged. And it is linen, which is kind of cool. I need it to go to roughly between these two. Now I'm making the pieces, I think just by my nature, I'm just always leave it a little bit bigger than what I need. I can always adjust and cut it down later. You know the saying, measure twice, tear once. Okay, so two things I want to add is, this is the fun part, it's playing with the shapes. This will come down there. Need something here. I could add maybe, thinking of doing, oh, you know what? I could do a horizontal piece. So I could do a lot of stitching here and make this part interesting. This will be kind of the highlight. I know I have something to put in this big white area. Okay, I am going to pin it and then I'm going to tack it down. This is some vintage lace I thrifted quite a while ago. These are all recent thrifts. This is old, and actually the muslin on the bottom was also old. It's vintage, but I bought it when I was making, oh gosh, decades ago. Let me put it that way. Oh, did I do? Oh, I sure did. Okay. One thing I forgot to say at the beginning is I actually cut or tore out two pieces of muslin, which now I have to separate. Oh, I was supposed to separate it before I started laying things out. Pretend like you didn't see me do all this already. Okay, so magically, ta-da, second piece. Okay, so I cut out or tore out two pieces of this white muslin. I'm stitching it down to one, and what I'm doing is saving, once I have all the backs of the stitching or all the stitching done, and I have a messy looking back, to make the card look prettier, I'm going to stitch this down and cover it. So that's what the second piece is for. So, okay. So now I have that. Where did I put my little flower? There it is. So it's going to look like that. And my flowers actually, oh, that's kind of cool. It's going to overlap the lace. Okay, so what I'm going to do is on the back side, I'm going to start cutting the edges to make them straight. But let me go ahead and start stitching this down. And I'm going to do I'm going to try to do something pretty over here. Let me clean this up and pull out the needle and start stitching. I did the tacking stitches down, and I just wanted to show something. I think I need to do this before I start doing the cantha or the slow stitching on this. Right here, I'm going to do, well, let me show you what I have first. On the bits of fabric that you get, and you know how they have the color bars, and then they'll have the name of the design, and sometimes you get the name of the designer or the, this was the Robert Kaufman fabric, and it was by a designer whose last name was Friedlander. So I was looking at it and noticed that it had all of the letters in my sister's name. So I cut that piece out and I ironed it onto some Wonder Under, and I'm going to cut this apart and create her name. So I have her name. And once I'll set it up, line it up a little to the side, and then iron it down. I think that'll be fun. I'm going to go iron these pieces down so that they'll stay in place. I have the cutout letters situated. They're backed with Wonder Under. It's sitting on my art piece, and the whole thing has a sheet of parchment paper. And I'm getting ready to iron it with my little handy dandy vintage travel iron so that I could do it on camera. Left-handed. There. I can start doing some stitching. I started doing the stitching on top. And as a side note, I just want to say my realization of how many times I do things left-handed unintentionally really stands out either in my stitching life or as I film things. Because why would I start my first row on the left? Right? Why didn't I start here and go across? I think it's a left-handed thing. I'm just going to do my left-handed stitching, or I guess I call it left-minded because, like I said, I was born left-handed, so many things, without thinking about it, I do left-handed. The beauty of slow stitching is that you don't do a lot of thinking. You just meditate on the feel of the fabric, of the needle going in and out. And this is some thrifted vintage crochet thread. And I think it is a size 10 because it's a little bit smaller than a size 8. So the beauty is I could do a lot of this stitching when I'm camping. I'm almost done with the stitching on this row. Okay, so you could see how that turned out. I think I'll stitch down the flower next, but it bothers me that it's at an angle. It's crooked. I'm going to see if I could find another one of these flowers. It's a nice little one there. Okay. That feels better than what it was. Okay. Just doing several little stitches. And now, I think I'm just going to stitch around. Oh, I'm going to go right-handed. I'm going to make a point of doing it right-handed. I'm just going to stitch around this box of flowers. I don't know if you noticed that, but I was going to come down this way, which would have been a left-handed way of doing it again. Okay, I like that much better. I might do this top band next. Okay, so this is vertical, this is also horizontal. Let me get a little more thread and just keep working. So I have a confession to make. I've been stitching on this and realize that I'm running out of time to send this to my sister for her birthday. So on this area, I wanted to do these little crosshatch stitches. I don't know what they call them, but I wanted to do those, and I needed to do them fast. So I needed to do them large. And when you do them large, if you do them crooked, they are going to show up really quickly. So I kind of cheated, and I'm admitting this. First off, that I don't do these stitches very straight in the first place. Second is that I'm in a rush. So here's what I did. I cheated it on the computer. I did a square that was roughly the size that I had, and then this was in Adobe Illustrator, so I did the cross hatches, aligned them, then printed it out and took a pokey tool and poked holes in the 4 points. I didn't do it in these because they ended up being behind the lace. So I did that, and then I took my water-soluble marking pen and poked them or inked it through the hole. So I came up with a lot of dots where I needed to stitch, just did a quick stitch through all of them. Part of it too was because it was such like a highlight of the area, big contrasty area, I didn't want them to be really wonky cross hatches. So, okay, so I admit I cheated. But I'm being honest about this. Now, what I'm going to do, again, I need to get this out today, so I'm going to stitch down the edges of the lace, and I started doing a little bit of embroidery inside the lace, like some satin stitch, so I might do that a little bit more in here, but then I will come back and show you the back, how I'll finish off the back with my other piece of muslin that I cut out or tore out in the beginning, and then I will send this out to my sister. Okay, let me finish this off. I don't think I explained about adding this little bit of lace edging here. I added this little bit of lace here. This came from this fabric. It had this little lace edging where I rescued this little piece and added it just for interest there. So I'm going to stitch that onto the back of here, which will make it look very clean. But before I do that, I think I want to put some kind of sentiment or sign it or do something. I decided to just write it, draw it with my friction pen on the back, and I'll just stitch that in. Guess I'm doing a back stitch. So I'm using a very muted red color. I thought it didn't clash too much with the front of it. What I'm going to do is a raised satin stitch. So I am using 6 strands of embroidery floss, and I'm going to go around and do a little back stitch, and I'm staying inside of the line that I drew because I want it to be, I don't want it to be too large because it is going to be a raised back stitch, and I kind of want it to look nice and puffy when I'm done. So I want it to be kind of small-ish. So there is the basic back stitched for the shape that I want. Now to do the raised satin stitch part, you take your thread and you do a satin stitch on top of the edges. So there's the heart. I'll bring it up a little bit. Normally what I would have suggested is after you do the back stitch around the piece, you can iron it at that point to get rid of any of the friction pin, and then from there you could do the raised satin stitch, but you don't want to iron it after you do the raised satin stitch because it'll flatten it. So just a side note. So now I'm going to flip it over, and I'm doing it with the raw edges. So now I'm going to repin it from the front. I'm using a Crewel size 2 vintage needle. Betsy Ann hand sewing needles, made in England, 45 cents. Anyway, the Crewel needles are nice because they have a really large eye and they are sharp. Got my needle puller ready to go. Because now I'm going through a lot of layers of fabric. So I'm going to make it easier on my hand, making sure I'm catching the fabric in back. I realized that stitching this is seen both from the front and the back, so I need the back side to be fairly even as well. So it's just one of these things where I need to keep turning it back and forth. But if you want it to look good from the front and the back, you kind of have to do this. So the stitches will look straight from the back side as well. So I'll just keep sewing that and be back when I'm done. The card is done. I slow stitched around the edge, and like I said, I did it slowly, watching from both sides because I wanted the stitch on the back side to be pretty as well as on the front side. So I had to go through very slowly and do that. Let me come in a little bit, show you the details. So just some canthus stitching up here. The lace I stitched down with some invisible stitching around the edge so it doesn't come up. I already explained about the cross hatch stitch. That came out really well. I like the way that stitched down or held down. Some more canthus stitching, added a little edge of lace there, and then did some canthus stitching down here. And on the back, signed my name with a little heart. That is it. That is my birthday card for my sister, and I will get it in the mail right now. So I hope you enjoyed that. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed that. I have a lot of other slow stitching projects, embroidery projects, so you could check that out. I want to thank everyone for watching. And please check out my website, LyndaCreates.com. That's Lynda with the Y, Lynda, for more inspiration. And follow along on my slow stitch journey. And maybe make a card or two. And fold it up and send it in an envelope. Maybe even this way in a business size envelope. So just a thought. I'm going to check to see the weight on it and the thickness. You don't want to go too thick. That's another reason I didn't add the beads. I'll have to fold it up and see, and we'll find out if that works. So anyway, thanks again, and I will see you in my next video.